A lot of Australia's seafood production has now shifted to aquaculture, but there are still some traditional fishing boats that take to the sea at night in search of a wild catch. Among them are the prawn fishermen of South Australia's Spencer Gulf. Given how much Australians love prawns, especially at Christmas, you'd think the prawn fishermen have a licence to print money. But it's not quite so simple, as Mike Sexton reports.
On a glass calm evening in South Australia's Spencer Gulf, the prawn fishing season is about to open. Nathan Hood's in charge of one of 39 boats that will trawl the sea floor all night in search of king prawns.
It's a short fishery, so it's very intense, it's fairly competitive, and we do work very hard. So you make your money quickly, fast, but then, we have a lot of time off.
This is not a cheap exercise. It costs about $5,000 a night just to run the boat, and they'll be at sea for more than 50 nights. But the rewards come when a single net can bring in hundreds of kilos of prawns.
Now we're down where we normally fish, and the fish size looks okay and there's a good quantity there.
The pressures of competition from other fisheries means these men constantly seek ways to work more efficiently. So the trawlers are more than fishing vessels, they're floating fish factories. Within minutes of being hauled from the Gulf, the prawns are sorted by size, cooked and boxed, ready for immediate sale when they return to port.
We return about $42 million directly to the community, and they also have a flow-on effect as well through employment and other businesses such as processors and so forth. So it's a reasonable sized fishery for South Australia.
For many fishermen, this is a generational industry. Their fathers were among the pioneers who began commercial trawling in these waters in the late 60s. The large prawns were a hit with consumers, and so the fishermen went out more than 300 nights per year to satisfy them.
My father's generation thought that it was an infinite resource that would last forever, but they soon found out through overfishing that it wasn't. And as soon as the stock levels of tuna and prawns and crayfish and everything started to plummet, they realised that, OK, we have to have some management policies in place.
The catalyst for change came after a disastrous season in the late 1980s, when they recorded the lowest catch on record. Despite the competitiveness of the business, the management system is based on cooperation and trust. Before any fishing, captains take surveys of the Gulf and return the information to a committee of fishermen who then decide whether or not that area can be fished.
What's important about the survey, it gives you a snapshot of what the stock is now, as opposed to going out there willy-nilly and taking what you think's okay and then finding out later that you made a mistake.
3, 6.
With an independent observer on board, the surveys measure fish size, gender and position in the breeding cycle to make sure fishing won't have a detrimental impact on stocks. There have been times when a certain area has been closed to fishing within an hour of the survey results being radioed in.
By and large, the message is we don't do any commercial fishing until we to ascertain that the stock is dead right.
The fishery doesn't have a quota. Instead, the fishermen determine themselves, in conjunction with the government, how much they take. On an average, it's about 2,000 tonnes per year. But amid this triumph of sustainability, the fishermen have found their returns are shrinking because of cheap competition. 70% of prawns sold in Australia are imported, mostly from aquaculture farms in Asia.
That has really impacted on our in dollar back to the boat. It's really stagnated our return cost, where all of our costs, our fuel, all our consumables, all those costs are increasing.
The fishermen struggle to compete with import prices, so they're now hoping their green credentials will increase their bottom line. With help from the World Wildlife Fund, the Spencer Gulf prawn fishermen have become the first trawlers and only the fourth fishery in Australia to qualify for a Marine Stewardship Council certification.
The MSC is an international non-profit organisation. We were set up in the late 90s to promote solutions to overfishing. We do this by recognising and rewarding sustainable fishing practices through the use of our standards and our eco-label.
The MSC is an incentive-based system that creates markets for seafood it considers are fished ethically. So far, 130 fisheries worldwide are included, and their produce is particularly sought after in Europe and North America, markets which have been previously unknown to the South Australian fishermen.
we will get a lot of benefit out of it, if not in actual dollar terms, the ability to sell our product. In tough times, that's a really important part, but by this sustainability tick like we've got now, it really does add value to the fishery.
By their own admission, the fishermen of the Spencer Gulf know how to catch prawns, not market them. But as they go about their work this season, they hope they can sell their sustainability along with their seafood.
My father was a fisherman and I'm a fisherman, and one day my son may be a fisherman, so we want to make sure something's left for the next generation.
Mike Sexton reporting.